Hi there, welcome to the 12 Days of Christmas Cards 2014, Day 11 with Justine. Today we're going to be making a few different cards and seeing how they work out. Let's get started on Day 11's cards. Now I'm making again a variety of cards for this one. We're going to make 4 different cards and see which one turns out best. As I said, I don't plan out my cards beforehand. I just get an idea and go with it and film. So I'm making 4 right now and we're going to see if any of them turn out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I already have an 11 by 4¼ inch panel scored at 5½ inches so that it makes my card base. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my die cut. And I'm going to attach it so that I can cut them both out at the same time, and that the string is in the middle touching the top of the card. So our actual card fold is going to have a slight hole in it. And I'm just going to tape that down with washi tape when I'm happy with it and send it through my die cutting machine. Now I'm going to do this on all 4 panels, both of the ruby red and both white. So I'm just going to do that quickly and then I'll be right back. Okay, I'm all finished die cutting my little ornaments in there. I think they turned out really cute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try 2 different things. I'm going to try the same technique, 2 techniques one on red and one on white, and one on red and one on white, if that makes sense. Okay, so the first technique I'm going to try is I am going to emboss this, just the front panel of the card, and send that through my embossing machine. I'm going to do this on both the white and the red. Okay, so as you can see, I ran it through the Tim Holtz sort of brick patterned paper, and I really like the way that both of them turned out. I think by doing that, you can avoid having to put pattern paper and you can avoid having it look too plain. Now for these ones here, I decided to do some stamping, and I'm going to use the Hero Arts. It's the Winter Sparkle background, and I really enjoy using this stamp. And I'm going to do a tone-on-tone stamping on the ruby paper, which means that I'm going to take the ruby red ink, which is the same color as the white, and I'm going to stamp this background onto just the front panel. So what I usually like to do is for these large stamps, I'll ink them up like so. I just have better control over the results, I find. And I'm going to take my card base and I'm going to try, or an attempt, to just lay that down like so. And I'm just going to run my hands and my fingers over the part that I want it to stamp on. And that's how it turned out. So I also like the way that that turned out. It's a little off center, so I might end up trim a small portion of that card base. Just gonna clean my card base off here and get all that red ink off, because I'm going to do the next one on the white background, and I'm not gonna do red. I think that would be way too much. But I'm going to do this glacier blue color. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna stamp it once on a scrap piece of paper, just to make sure that all that red ink is off. Red is such a dominant color that I find it's a little bit harder to clean off. So I just want to make sure that there's no red in it. And it looks like it did a pretty good job at cleaning it, except for on the S here. Okay, so I'm happy that I did that first. And the next thing I'm going to do is lay this down exactly like I did before. And you can take a scrap piece of paper like the one you just had to help you not get your fingers dirty. Make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to pull that up, and that's the result that I get on that one. Okay, now this is going to be a window card, as you can probably tell. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my card bases. So I'm going to fold those, and then I'm going to grab a pencil. Okay, so I have a scrap piece of paper here, and I have one of the die cuts that I cut out from this actual pattern. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trace on this scrap piece of paper this ornament. And this is a technique I learned from Jennifer McGuire. And I believe the one I saw of hers, she used a Christmas tree for hers instead of an ornament. Okay, and now I grabbed a whole bunch of sentiment stamps and stamp sets that I could possibly maybe use to fill up this space. So I'm just going to get those all ready. Now I'm going to set them face down and I'm going to arrange them so that they fill the space. And it's easier said than done. I'm going to put you on fast mode as I do this. All the stamps are going to be listed in the supply list, which is on a link in the description. So let's get started. Alright, so now that I've used my stamp press to pick up all of those stamps, I'm going to grab a piece of washi tape because one of those stamp sets, the Merry part of the Merry Christmas, isn't going to fit. Okay, so what I did was I stamped, you can actually do it in one color, it's no problem. Once you pick them up with your stamp press, stamp them all on your scrap piece of paper. And this is how I'm going to get the multicolored stamping into my, onto my white cards. The red cards, I'm going to do something different. So I'm going to take, I lined up the Be Jolly, the Merry Christmas, and the Joy stamp set, and it's really important that they're lined up exactly, because this I'm going to stamp in one color and then I'm going to rearrange the other one so I know where to put them. Alright, so I'm going to stamp these ones in Glacier ink. I'm actually going to just wipe them off one more time to make sure that they're clean. Okay, and I'm going to move my scrap over here, and I'm going to take my white card base, and I've already traced the ornament in there so I know exactly where to line it up. And I want to wipe off the Merry, because remember we aren't using the Merry part of the Christmas stamp. So that's all cleaned off. And I'm going to stamp like so. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my other white base so I can do this quickly and efficiently. And you can create this in a bulk card. It isn't one that's going to be super fast, but it's not bad, that's for sure. And again, I'm going to do this. So as many cards as you decide to do, that is how many times you're going to stamp this in a row. Remember, you want to create sort of an assembly line when doing bulk cards. Okay, so those ones are finished. I'm going to clean off my stamps, and I'm going to put those off to the side. I'm going to need them later for when we do the red ones. Now the red ones are going to be easier because we're just going to stamp them in the Versamark ink, which is just one ink, and we're going to white emboss those, because if you don't do that, you're not going to see them. So I'm going to take my sort of master plan, you could say here. now I'm going to get ready for embossing. So I'm going to pick up all of those stamp sets using my stamp press. And I'm going to take my 2 red pieces, and I also traced the ornament in these ones. I'm going to take my EK Success powder tool. I just had a fight with it, so I'm hoping it's going to work out well for me right now. Just to make sure that I don't get any embossing powder where I don't want it. I never find this thing works very well for me. I don't know why. Now it's starting to actually come out. For the longest time, no powder came out, and I didn't understand why. All right. I'm going to clean that up later. Kind of made a mess there. All right, so the stamp press is all ready with all of my stamps on it. I'm going to stamp this in Versamark ink. And again, I'm going to wipe off the Mary part with a dry cloth this time because I don't want any of the powder sticking to it. I'm actually going to go over it with the brush to make sure that no powder sticks to that Mary. And I'm going to kind of line it up with my ornament. Push down. And then I'm going to cover it with white embossing powder. Alright, so I finished embossing the second card. The Joy didn't actually stamp very well, so I left it out for now, and when the card is all dry, like there's no more Versamark sort of sitting on top of the surface, I'll go back in and re-stamp that Joy stamp. Right now it's just too wet. I tried to go over it a couple times and lay some powder and it just didn't work. So it's not too big of a deal. So I'm just going through and I'm erasing my pencil marks. You kind of want to be a little bit lighter on the eraser when you're erasing from colored cardstock. I find that depending on the quality of the cardstock, it might end up causing some fading. And then I'll let you take a look at all of the cards and see what you think. Okay, so as you can see, this was with the stamped background, sentiment, and then the embossing. I think this card is okay. It's not my favorite. This here I like a lot better. I think it looks really classy with the embossed background and the embossed, the heat embossed sentiments. I think this one is my favorite. I might go in with a Versamark pen and actually go along this bow in white embossing powder just to make that stand out a little bit more. This is with the background stamping and the different colored stamping. I think I would leave out the glacier ink color the next time and just do red and black to make sure that it pops. I also think I would second generation this stamp set, so just to make it a little bit lighter of the ink color. It's not my favorite, but I think I've learned enough from making this card that I can make it again and make it better looking. And again, this one I find just beautiful. It stands out, the sentiments, the colors, the embossing. So I definitely have to say the embossing card with the heat embossed sentiment and the stamped and the different colored sentiment are my favorites from today's cards. Thank you so much for watching day 11 and seeing my creative process on how I create cards. Stay tuned for day 12 tomorrow. It's the final day, the last giveaway, and the winners will be announced on Friday. Thank you so much for watching this series.